as long as it makes sense to me, it's okay. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. I don't need anybody else's approval. This works for me and my household, and I'm going to push forward with it anyway.
Welcome to In Her Space podcast, a safe space for raw and real conversations with women who have walked in those shoes. Unfiltered experiences makes it her space. Hosted by yours truly, Ivy Ekong. Welcome to another episode of In Her Space podcast. I'm your host, Ivy Ekong. We are on YouTube and all podcast streaming platforms. Please subscribe while you're there. On today's episode, we are shining a light on autism awareness, exploring challenges that children and individuals with autism encounter, and discussing ways to foster understanding and support. We have a very, very inspirational guest today to shed more light on autism. And joining us today is Tola Andu.
Hello.
Hi, Tola. How are you?
I'm very well.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you a little bit of background about Tola. Tola Andu is an award-winning speaker, social entrepreneur, and dedicated advocate for autism awareness and support. She's also very passionate about promoting positive early childhood experiences and positive parenting and inclusion of people with disabilities. Tola uses her lived experiences raising her son to promote autism awareness and acceptance on her social media platform, which we're going to tag here. And she has a following of over 1 million people because of, what she does and how she inspire a lot of people and moms. Through her organization, Tola Andu Foundation and the Sistahood Co, she provides valuable resources such as free therapy, educational resources, and community support to families raising children with autism and special needs. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Her efforts earned her an Inspirational Woman of the Year award in 2024. Well done for that.
Thank you.
And a Humanitarian Services Award from the Nigerian Association of Special Education Teachers in 2023. Welcome, Tola.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you in her
here
space today.
Thank you.
I hope you're well.
I'm very good. Thank you.
Very good. And you're excited?
Yeah, nice and comfy. So
Nice
welcome.
and comfy, very comfy. Okay, we have this question we ask every guest.
Oh, okay.
And the question is, what does having a safe space mean to you? I mean, based on the name of the podcast, In Her Space, it would be great to know, what does having a space, your own little safe space, what does it mean to you?
I think it would be somewhere where you can let your guard down, a place where you can have real, honest conversations. Because I feel like there's not always spaces like that where you can just
be yourself.
exhale.
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be what it would mean to me.
That's beautiful. And I think that's one of the reasons why I launched this podcast, because I felt we didn't have a lot of safe space as women. There are so many podcasts out there, and when I listen, sometimes a lot of gossip and a lot of, and I just said, we need to have something, a space for us to just be vulnerable, to share, and just to encourage one another. And so that's what led to this.
Beautiful. And it's great that you did it anyway, because I bet some people have things on their mind that they just, don't have that drive to push forward. So this is amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And we've had a lot of tears here. We've had a lot of laughter here. We've had a lot of warm hugs here. So it's really that space, and when you're here, it's like the world doesn't exist. It's just you and me. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Lovely.
Okay. I feel even more relaxed now.
Yes, please relax. Relax. Okay, before we start, can you take a deep breath? And out. Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
First question is going to be very interactive.
Okay, I love that.
So I'm not going to put you in the hot spot all the time. I'll ask you a question. If I have life experiences about that, I'll also include mine. So we are just chatting, literally.
Okay, cool.
Can you take us back to when your son was first diagnosed with autism? What were your initial thoughts, feelings, and how has your perspective evolved over the years?
Wow.
And please let me know if you need to take a little break, if you're getting a bit overwhelmed, just let me know.
Okay. So, wow, this takes us all the way back. So Kevin was born in 2005, so he was diagnosed at 4. So did you mean from his diagnosis? Yeah? Or from when we started to see signs?
Yes, from when you started seeing signs, really.
Okay. So, okay. So we started to see signs way before his diagnosis.
How old was he?
So I'll say from a year old, we saw signs, but we weren't worried.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. So,
what sort of signs?
Like for most kids from age 1, they start to verbalize some things. Like they might say mama,
yes,
dada, respond to their name, little things like that. Yeah. So we didn't have that.
Okay.
But Kevin is our first child, myself and my husband. And, we hadn't been parents before. So we kind of didn't know what to expect, really.
Yeah.
And then there's this thing about people saying that boys are slow. So even though we had worries about him not being as interactive as we saw other children, we kind of just thought that he would kind of catch up. So our worries didn't really get compounded until he went to nursery around age 2. And, they say when your child is in a setting with other kids, don't compare. But as a parent, the one thing you do...
Yes, you are looking at that child and looking at
the
your
one
child
thing you do is compare.
Yes.
So that was when the worries got a bit more heightened. Okay. And then when they called us in to say that, they were worried about his progress, his interaction with other kids, I suppose that was where our journey really began. So they did advise us to take him for an assessment. This was from the nursery. We, at this point, were clueless.
Yeah.
So we did kind of just follow the advice that we were given. As you do, you kind of just do what the professionals tell you.
Yeah.
So that was how the assessment began. And on the day that he was given his diagnosis, I was so clueless because I didn't have or know anybody in my networks or in my family or even in the people that are around me that had a diagnosis.
Okay.
So I was clueless. I think that would have been the first initial thoughts, like, what are you talking about?
What is this? Yes.
What are you talking about type of thing?
Yeah.
So that was the initial reaction. And I suppose following on from that, then came a bit of research. And this was back in the day when we didn't even have computers at home. You had to go to the library to browse and use the computer. So that was what happened. And that was where it became real. It became very scary because back in the day, the research was just around all the things that your child possibly wouldn't do. They might never talk. They might never, have relationships, have a job, go to college. And, nobody gets pregnant. I don't believe anyway that anybody gets pregnant or goes on a journey of parenthood and has these things at the back of your mind. You have a world of glam.
Yes, glam, excited.
And when, life takes you a different route, it can be a hard pill to swallow.
Yes.
So, that was us from the start. The fear set in. And, being very Nigerian as well, that has its own complicating factors. So,
stigmatization.
There was all of that.
Yeah. Unawareness.
Misconceptions. There's so many
misconceptions.
There's so much craziness.
They'll say take the child to church. Go do that, go do this.
All the advice that you didn't ask for, all the advice that's not actually useful or helpful for you.
Definitely.
But you get them anyway.
You get them.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure as a mom, that would have been very, very difficult for
Extremely.
you to,
Extremely. Because you're just trying to even come to terms with what your reality looks like. And you don't know yourself. You don't really have the answers. And sometimes, I feel like you don't really need to know about something to be empathetic about it. Like, just use kind words, but it's not always the case. And I think that sometimes as a person, you have to be the one that has to consciously filter out some of these things because they'll happen to you anyway. It's your reaction to it that count. But that in itself is a journey. Like to be so solid in yourself that you're not overly, because there's no how people will say something that wouldn't impact you, but you're not overly impacted by people's opinions or words or actions.
Yes,
it's a journey in itself.
The noise.
That alone is work. Yeah.
Okay. So what have been some of your biggest challenges that you've had to face as a mom raising an autistic child?
So I always say that, my son in itself, like raising him is the list of my worries. It's kind of like everything else. So it's like services, it's like culture, it's like school, it's like the society, it's all of these things. Because when you have your child, you love them unconditionally.
You love them anyway.
Like that's your child.
Yes.
So regardless of what the challenges are, you just you just love them.
Yeah.
And I don't ever see my son as a burden.
No.
But it's the complicating factors, all the things that gets in the way of me being able to be who he needs me to be. Those are the challenges that, weigh really heavy on my heart. Like struggles with school. Oh my goodness. When Kevin was in primary school, he went to 4 different schools.
Wow.
Because we just couldn't find a space. And let me not even lie.
You couldn't find a school for him? If you don't mind me asking, when did he start talking? So I'm sure when you went to, of course, your GP or NHS, they gave you like a speech therapist, or you had to employ one to gradually help him to start. So when did he start speaking?
People ask me this question a lot, and I never really know a great way to answer it because there's talking and there's communicate. There's so many aspects to it. Like if it's, when did he say his first word? Where it was well over 4 years old.
Okay.
And
that he said
that was,
and
and his first word was bye. Like he said bye and waved in context. I was like, like this was nothing like we had before.
Yes.
Like, sometimes there's echolalia as well, where he kind of just copied everything he had, but not in context. Like he used to love Dora the Explorer when he was young, and he could sing way before he could talk. So when people ask me when did he start talking, I'm like this boy was singing, like he'd be singing Dora, but you ask him what his name was, and you didn't know, and he couldn't answer you. Do you get what I mean? So it's always a very difficult, question for me to answer. In terms of when he started using functional speech where you'd ask him something and he'll be able to reply, it's not long ago. Like well after his teen years.
Wow.
Well after, like before he kind of just knew, do you want this? Yes, no. Like he knew his needs. He knew like what he wanted. He could express himself. But me saying, how was your day in school?
Yes.
Now that takes a lot more processing. And that really didn't come until a few years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why I say it's not an easy question to
as a mother,
answer.
and I think what you said before, it's not really about you. It's seeing a child that you gave birth to, that you love so much, sort of struggle. I think that's where, for you, that's like that's the worst thing, honestly, that can happen to any mom, because you're like, how do I make sure this child it's not discriminated against? Is playing like his mates, is talking like his mates, and that can be very, very challenging to navigate as a mom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't think that the fears or the worries, like you described them, ever really go away. Like my son is 19 now, and until I hear his keys in the door is when I start to like breathe better.
Wow.
So I think when they're small, your fears might be a different thing. Yes. And then when they start to grow, your fears might transition into something else. But right now, like, he's a young Black boy in London. That alone has all of it.
Scary.
So the fears change and transition into whole lot of different things. And I'm sure it's not just for parents with a child with disabilities. I think it's just
it's
parents
general,
in general,
yes,
because
it's
he's not my only child. I have two other children, his younger siblings, and
it's general. My mom used to say, like, you're a parent forever. And we didn't
Absolutely.
understand what she meant by that.
Until-
And my mom would say every stage of parenting is different.
Yes.
There are times when I was worried, to potty train you. And then I potty trained you. And then I'm worried, will she pass her exams in school? And then now you're married and you're still calling me to say, mommy, my husband is
This one, that
so
one.
it will continuously, it
Doesn't end.
never, and then your grandchildren will come and start the
Oh,
cycle
God.
all over again.
We don't catch a break.
Yeah, so you never catch a break as a mom, honestly.
Never ending.
And I think that brings me back to my next question. A lot of parents worry about their child's future. How have you navigated the transition from childhood to adulthood, and what support system do you think have been helpful to you, most helpful?
Navigating childhood to adulthood, I think for me, it just took a lot of reflection, a lot of reality check. I'll give an example. Say when Kevin is his teens and in his last few years of secondary school, me and my husband, we had to sit down and look at him in terms of where he was at. And we, aside his autism, because some people have autism but don't have a learning disability, but he has autism, he has ADHD, and then he has a learning disability as well. So, I'm Nigerian, and when you have your kids, you want them
too.
to.
Did you know I'm Nigerian as well?
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, I'm
so we have
Nigerian
that.
too.
So you probably understand
so I
when
definitely understand.
as parents, you want your child to be a doctor or be
a
a lawyer.
Yes,
These are the
like,
things that we aspire to, and we knew that wasn't our reality, and it was a very hard pill to swallow. And with Kevin, in terms of his learning, so for secondary school, he went to a mainstream school, but he was in the ASD provision bit. So he did some lessons with the mainstream class, say like PE, art, cooking, those type of things that were geared towards his ability that he could do with his peers. But like things like maths and English and sciences, it's just not at the same level as his peers. So he did that in a specialist unit.
So they had so it wasn't a special needs school per se.
No, so it's a mainstream school, but they have a little division.
How does that work? Okay.
So a lot of schools do kind of have that now, where it kind of gives opportunity for like inclusion. So as I said, he did some lessons like PE and things. He could do that with his peers, but more academic things then he couldn't really, because he wasn't at that level. And when it came to GCSEs, we just knew that it would be unfair to put that type of pressure on him. And as a parent, it shatters you. Like, it's thinking back at it now, it was such a difficult decision to make and come to terms with. Because then you'd be like, so if you don't have GCSEs, what are the other routes to a future for you? What else can you do? And it was after we had to come to the terms with the fact that this was just not a route for Kevin. Okay, so what else can he do? What what is available for a young man like him? And we did find some other ways. So I just want any parents listening to this that, there are other ways. You do have to do some research. You do have to do some digging. But, it's not the end of the world. And, this information is not going to come knocking at your door as well. You're going to have to come to terms with what your reality is. By all means, look at your child holistically. Like, what are their strengths? What are their struggles? But I feel like everybody has their own purpose in this life. And as parents to our children, we can try. We're not perfect. But, we can try and guide them and steer them. Everybody has a reason why they're here. And it might not look like your vision that you had prior. And it might not look like everybody else's. But, that's okay too.
And the child doesn't even need to have autism. There are some children who don't, they just have a different calling in life. And as parents, you want to support that. You want to support that. You want to be open and just help them.
It's not easy, though, sis.
I know. It's not easy. Because we have dreams for these children, you know.
Big dreams.
We have big dreams. We want them to conquer the world.
Absolutely.
But like you said, you have to know your child and just sort of follow suit based on that. Otherwise, you're doing the child more harm than good.
Absolutely. I think it's when I started to tailor my parenting to what my child needed, it was even less stressful for me at that point. It was when I was just trying to get him to conform to the way things are done. The struggle was real.
Wow.
The struggle was real because it was never going to happen.
Yeah.
And everybody was going to get burnt out in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. He's a special child, you know. He's a very special child. So as Kelvin has grown older, how has his needs changed?
So they've
And how
changed
have you adapted to those needs as they change?
So it's a learning process. And
till now, still.
Absolutely, sis.
Wow.
And at every stage, you have to be open. You have to be ready to change plans. You can't be rigid. You honestly really can't be rigid. When he was smaller, I was telling you about the struggles with school. You know, some of the things were parental, like some of the things were more in terms of the services, like the local authority and all of that. But when he first started school, myself and my husband, we had this Catholic school that our mind was set on. And we were like, no, that is where our son is going. And we tried that first. And it was not the space for him. And that was very hard to accept.
And how did you know that? Like, how do you know that that space is not the space for you?
He struggled, sis.
He struggled, okay.
He was spending more time outside the class than inside the class.
So he just goes out by himself.
The class is 30 children.
Yes,
and like one TA and one teacher. Too much for him. And he couldn't, like, he had ADHD as well, so he couldn't sit still. He was just climbing on the tables, running, doing all. People see him now and they're like, it's so calm. Oh my goodness, I had my fair share of running around. Like, I couldn't wear heels. You have to wear trainers because you never know when you're going to have to leg it.
Really?
Hey, honestly, like, people don't believe it when I say it now.
I hear a lot that boys are very, I mean, I had 2 girls first, so I just have my boy now, and I feel I'm a new parent because I'm learning a lot as well. With girls, they are very calm. I can give my daughters, when they were much little, I'll give them their doll. And I'll say, sit there, and they'll be there. I can come back 2 hours later. They are weaving the doll's hair. They are rubbing the dolls. They are there. Whereas for my son, when I say sit there, he can say, okay, mommy, and he sits. By the time I walk away, he's getting up and following me.
I hear it.
You know, so, I mean, with situations like that, didn't you think it was normal for boys to act that way?
Sis, he was not the only boy in the class. There was 30 children in the class. And and the TA he had at the time, bless this lady, she was like an elderly lady, and Kevin would make her run. She'd be running after him because it was too much going on. It was overstimulating for him. It was just not an environment that would foster his type of learning.
Yeah.
And it was a hard 1 year because each meeting I was like, give him a chance. Give him a chance. He's a new space. Give him a chance. Give him a chance. So, you know, when that didn't work out, we had to come to terms with the fact that that wasn't the space. So getting him into a special needs school was a struggle. It was a struggle. First, there was not even one in the area. We had to go outside the borough. It was craziness.
Wow.
It was,
and did that school help him a lot more?
Yes. When we finally got him settled in the ASD boys school, yeah. But you know, sometimes you have to kiss a few frogs before you get to your prince.
Before you get to your prince. So what does a typical day look like for you and your son? I mean, I've seen a lot of your clips on social media, which is really, really sweet.
Thank you.
The way you're so patient with him, you're so patient. And I don't think if you're not a patient person, naturally,
I am not a patient person naturally.
You are not, so you had to learn to be patient.
This is what I was saying earlier. Like when you tailor your parenting to what your child needs, like you have strengths that you don't even know about. Until you're faced with a situation that needs you to be, you would think that, no, I can't be this. It couldn't be me. You know, nah. But at the end of the day, like, this is my reality. And I want the best for him. So I have to be the person that he needs me to be for me to see the results that I'm hoping to see.
And how do you balance that?
It's not easy. It's not easy. And you have to acknowledge the fact that you're not perfect. You can't know it all. You can't do it all. Give yourself grace.
Yeah.
And let yourself feel how you feel. Some days is for crying. And cry. Like, crying is not a bad emotion.
It's not bad, no.
And some days is overwhelm. And some days is joy,
It's chilled,
And I try the best I can to do the best to see the joy. Sometimes it's so hard.
Yeah.
Like, you're so overwhelmed with the struggles that you don't see the joy. But, something even as little as your child sitting and cozying into you is the joy, because that's love.
Yes.
And even bringing you a glass of milk or, stroking your hair, you have to really be about the little things, because they are the things that will keep you going when you feel like you want to pull all your edges out and life is coming at you hard.
Yes.
These are the things that will get you through the day. And and for like Kevin, because you asked about like what a typical day looks like, starts at 5:45. Like, he wakes me up, and just very recently we started doing workouts together because my sister is trying to lose some weight. And so that's how our morning starts. We do a bit of exercise, and then each person gets on with the day. I do have a 9 to 5. I work in public health, so I go to work. He goes off to college. The other kids as well go to work. Dad goes to school. Dad goes to work, and then we join back again in the afternoon. So it's either he goes to work 2 days a week, and he goes to college 3 days a week. So depending on what day he's having, he's either in work or in college. And then we get back, and he's always asking me about my steps. Have you done your 10K steps yet? If I've not done it yet, he'll be on my case. Mom, go outside. Mom, have you done your steps yet? So until the steps, then he'll leave me alone. And then I suppose we get something to eat. And so a typical day, weekend is a lot more relaxing. But weekdays, there's a lot of coming and going.
That's good.
Yeah.
So what are some practical ways that the society can better support autistic adults and even children in areas? Okay, well, I think we'll focus on adults here because we're talking about employment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what are some practical ways that the society can better support autistic adults in areas like employment, housing, and social inclusion?
This is a great question, because this is where we're at now.
Okay.
And it's, I think it's heavy on inclusion, like people, organizations, even the community, places like local churches, schools, workplaces should just be open to the idea of taking a chance with people.
Yeah.
Don't assume incompetence. Don't assume that, because there are, maybe my son has, he has speech, but there are some adults that do not have speech, but that does not mean that they do not communicate. That doesn't mean that they cannot do things or learn things. Sometimes we're so overly bothered by the outward appearance that we don't bother to dig deep. We don't bother to try and connect with people. We're taken aback. And, I just would hope for a society where people are more open to the idea of, just being kind, just being supportive, just being empathetic, taking a chance on people, showing kindness, little things like that go a massive long way. Like where my son is interning now, honestly, like, I have no worries. Like, they treat him there like, and like, they look after him. They're so accommodating of his needs. Like, he has picture schedules of what, because they know he's very visual. So he has picture schedules of the way to lay the table, how they want it laid, how they want things arranged. Because if he sees it, he will do it.
So
but if you're explaining, it might get muddled up in his head. But if he sees it, and there's space and there's room for, people like my son and plenty other like him. And, it just takes us. Everybody has a role to play in this. Even if you're a bus driver on the bus, or you're someone in the church or in the local library, we just have to see people and not disability. We just have to just be kind. And it doesn't even cost anything.
It doesn't cost anything. Like he's a human being, and we are different in different ways. Every single human being is different.
Absolutely.
Whether they have a disability, they don't have it, they are different in. And I think once we see that and just be empathetic as human beings, then the world will be a better place, honestly. And people who I would actually commend you, because Kevin has, like, his milestone, he's achieved a lot of milestones. He's schooling now. He can go out on his own, come back on his own. There are a lot of people who cannot do that because they're scared.
I didn't think it was possible either. And I always try and say to parents as well that sometimes you just have to be crazy enough to try, because you don't know. And up until now, there's still things that we've been teaching for years and we've still not gotten yet. So I do share the milestones because I want another parent to, have hope that there's things that's possible. Not because I get every single thing right or is doing everything that I'm trying to teach him. There's still things that we've been teaching for years and years and years, and we've not quite achieved victory at it yet. But, we don't stop. We don't stop. One day at a time.
Yes.
One day at a time. And sometimes you just have to be crazy enough to take a chance. Because what's the worst that could happen is that it wouldn't work out. And it's better that at least you tried and it didn't work than just never try
and you're
it
teaching
all.
the child to take risk as well and not just sit down.
And some of the things, it's true. Some of the things, like even going out, he doesn't have those fears about being out. I do. But I try and not impose my fears on him, but still try and put strategies in place that keeps him happy, keeps me and my anxiety happy as well.
Keep you sane.
It's a joint effort. So there's that bit of things as well.
Yeah. That's really good. I think that's a good tip for anyone listening right now. How do you take care of your mental health, emotionally, physically, as a full-time, because you are a full-time caregiver, even though you have a 9 to 5. I don't think what you do with your son, 9 to 5 is none compared to it, because it's 24 hours. It doesn't end.
Don't clock out.
Yes. So how do you look after yourself, Tola, yourself? How do you come in to make sure that you are okay so that you can help your family be okay as well?
And this is not going to be something that I'll be saying, oh, I've been doing this from long. Like, it's only something that I realized very recently, and from learning the hard way. Like, I had a horrible panic attack in work where I couldn't breathe.
Wow.
Like, I honestly thought that I was going to die.
Really?
And I was in work. I was by myself. It was on a Friday. Everybody had gone to work. And all of a sudden, there was anybody that has a panic attack that's watching this, they know what I'm talking about. Like, there was no real...
So I know what you're talking about.
And there was no real, like, lead up to it. It was just... It was so sudden, and I was trying to breathe, and it would just not go down into my lungs. And I had to be like texting my husband and then call the ambulance and then call him and put him on speakerphone. And he was the one telling them my name, my date of birth. It was crazy. And it just goes, I really just want people not to learn the hard way, because that was my wake up call that, look, you can't do 200 things at once.
And you can't pour into a cup empty. You have to be full.
Honestly. And you would think that you have it together. You would think that, I could do it. Is it not this and that and this and that and this? Until your body tells you. But please do not get to where your body tells you. Do it before your body tells you. And now, I don't want to be back to that place. So I've learned.
Back there because your son needs you. Imagine if something happened to you.
I honestly thought that something was that day. It was so scary. And I think another part is me understanding and acknowledging that, I'm not going to be here forever, and try and put things in place that, whether I'm here or whether I'm not here, at least to some degree be okay.
He's okay.
And, try and take time for myself with it, because mom guilt will fire you as well.
Oh, yes. Oh.
And I started traveling solo. Before, I would just be like, oh, if I leave them with their dad, or maybe they're not going to have a hot dinner every night, or maybe this will happen, or it's not going to wash the uniform properly. Sometimes I come back and the white shirt is grey.
Yes.
But please, at least it's clean. So at least it's clean.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, they might not do the things the way you do the things, but the kids are alive and they're fine.
Yeah.
But I'll still be sitting on the plane and still be thinking that, oh my God, what type of mom are you leaving your child?
No.
But look, the plane is taking off and I'm going anyway.
I know we all think of that, and you are a good mom. You need to be, and that's what I personally have come to also realize, that your cup has to be full before you can pour into your children's cup.
True.
Your children want you to be happy. And if you're not happy, they see it, and it affects them as well. So they want you to be okay.
True.
And if what you need to do to be there is take a weekend away, or go lie in a spa somewhere for a whole day, get some massages. Why not?
I know.
Things
get your
that
nails
you feel,
done. Get your eyebrows shredded.
Exactly. Things that you feel will not be done when you are not there, they'll be waiting for you, or they'll be done. And what I've come to realize is that they are fine. We've gone my very first trip away from my daughter, because it was just hard then. Then you can see the age gap with my children, like 8 years, 11 years. It wasn't planned that way. They just were not coming, fortunately. So when I had my daughter, my husband used to travel a lot. So it would just be she and I. And when we got married, my husband and I, we made a pact that we'll be traveling together alone every year, whether we have kids or not. It was easy to say, oh, yes, of course, because there were no kids then. But when we had our daughter, the first travel, I cried my eyes out. I told my husband I'm not going. I said, no, we are not doing this. We have to break this. We have to travel every year, just the two of us. Let's put an end to it now, because my husband said, well, this is one of the reasons why I said we have to do it. And I remember when we agreed on this, we did say when there are children and when there are no children. So the child has come now. We still need to do it. And I remember leaving my daughter, I think, how old was she then? 1 year? She was 1 year. Yeah, let's probably 10 months, 11.
Okay.
And we went on our first 5 days getaway. And I cried from Heathrow till I got to my destination. In fact, I'm sure my husband was like, come on, tired of this woman now. And for men, it's so easy for men to just detach.
And nobody bats an eyelid as well.
Just, he was like, don't worry, we'll go back, and, she's in the safe hands.
Yeah.
And that day, we called her to speak with her. She didn't even want to talk to me on the phone. She was like, she just left. She's crawling,
doing her own thing.
And I was like, look at this child I'm almost killing myself for. And when we got back, I ran to her to give her a hug. She just looked at me and she crawled
where have you
away.
been?
Like, she was. So it taught me that the children are so resilient that they are happy with where they are at the moment. As long as the person watching them is safe, is a good person, they are fine. They have food, they have a space to play around. That's all they need to be. I think we as mom, we sort of give ourselves too much trouble, just thinking, oh, they are not okay. They won't be fine without me. They won't be. And over the years, I've noticed, because we keep traveling till today. We've been married for 16 years now, and we've gone on holiday, just the two of us, every year for 16 years.
Same.
And when we go and come back, they're like, oh, mommy, welcome. Why did you stay longer? Like, they don't care. So if you're listening to me and you have mom guilt of why you shouldn't pour into yourself, just know that your children honestly do not care. They want you to be fine. That 1 day, 2 days, weekend you're taking away, it's not going to alter their life in any way at all. It's actually going to pour into them, because when you come back, and when you come back from that spa, it doesn't even have to be a holiday. It can just be 1 hour away, 2 hours, just do something. Yeah. You're smiling, you're happy. They see their mom glowing, booming.
Yeah. It's
you
true.
know, and they're happier for
Because they
it.
can even tell when you're stressed, you know, your attention span.
Yes,
You
yeah,
know,
they can
even
tell.
yeah, you're snappy.
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting there, you're complaining.
Yes,
You
yeah.
know, little things be so irritable that you might as well not be there because
Yeah.
you've been there as well. You know, you don't want to be in a space that's tense.
That's tense, yes.
You know, you want the home to be your children's safe space.
Yeah.
And, you know, life stressors can weigh in on you. And you have to know when to, you know, detach. And go and fill your cup and then come back. And then your children can have the best of you again.
Again, absolutely.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to mothers who are just beginning their journey of raising an autistic child?
It's a big one. First, I would say this, which is what I've learned later as well, and it is to not burden yourself with the weight of people's opinions. It's people that don't live your reality. They don't know your life. They're the one that gives all the advice. So, you know, if you can free yourself from the weight of people's opinion, that's a good place to start.
Okay.
Because that way, you know, you can focus. It's not, your decisions are not subject to what this person is going to say about it, what this person thinks about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, with life, sometimes we want it to look picture perfect, whatever that means.
Yep.
And it's not because you think your life is not beautiful, but because you think somebody else doesn't approve of it, or like, oh, that's you. What gives you the effrontery to be, you know, be this confident? Or so I would just say, because it's what I've learned and where I've got the most peace, is just do things that, as long as it makes sense to me, it's okay. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. I don't need anybody else's approval. This works for me and my household, and I'm going to push forward with it anyway. Okay. Once you get to that place, because a lot of things that we stress about, a lot of things that we lose sleep about, that we're crying about, is things that are not our business. Absolutely. That really shouldn't be our business.
You're right.
So that's what I would say. Because you love your child. They're beautiful. They're the most perfect thing in your eyes. But because this person thinks, that person thinks you should, you know, take them to this place, give them this thing, fix them this way. Those are the things that, you know. So if you can silence all of that
noise,
you be good.
Yeah. So there's still a lot of stigma and misunderstanding around autism.
We'll be here all day if we start talking about it.
I know. And especially in Nigeria and Africa, where we are from, there is still a lot of stigma around autism and children that have autism, ADHD,
just disabilities in general.
Exactly. Honestly, disabilities in general. And do you even see a lot of people who have disabilities out and about in Nigeria? No, they lock them inside, which is such a shame. It's like horrid. That is a human being. So what would you, I don't even want to start now. Let me stick with what we're saying, because I don't know. I don't want to. What do you wish more people know about autistic adults and children?
So people in general, or are we talking about the African community?
African community.
So I think that all the things that we've said earlier, that we should just, you know, treat people as people first. Yeah. And, you know, we should all be a part of the change that we want to see, you know, and that's why I started TAF Cares, because I know that, okay, here we're struggling, but our struggles and the struggles back home is differences.
Yes.
Like here, you might say, oh, the waiting list is long. Well, at least there's a waiting list that you're waiting for.
Yes.
Oh, the service is this.
Absolutely.
At least there's a speech and language therapist. Or there's, but back home, the government doesn't even... It's not on their agenda.
It's not even on their...
It's really not on their agenda. And when my dad, he visits like every summer, and one of the summers when he came a couple of years ago, he came with me to Kevin's progress review, and he was so in awe that there's actually settings that identify that your child has this needs and then puts tailored support to help them. He was so... he was taken aback. And then I was just curious, because prior to then, I was just facing my own life here. And I was like, so what happens back home? I was curious. And he was like, oh, first he said, no, I don't think there's this type of children.
Are you serious?
I promise you.
Of course there are.
He was like, no,
so
I don't think.
many.
She was like, I don't think. And I gave him the assignment. I was like, go back home and you do some research. And he found a special school in my village, just one school. And it was like a dumping ground for any type of disability. They were the assignment. I was like, go back home and, do your research. And I'm keen to hear what's going on. And he said there was one special school and it was like a dumping ground for all disabilities. So even if you don't have an intellectual disability, even if you just literally had like one arm missing, or everybody
there. Wow.
So there was autism, there's Down syndrome, there's children that maybe are just crippled or something.
Yeah.
Every type of child.
Oh
It was,
God.
and I had to schedule a meeting with the ed teacher, and she was like, some people will leave their kids at the gate and run, that they don't know. They had to open boarding facility by force because people were dumping their kids and leaving.
Wow.
And as I said, we just
so
have to be
sad.
part of the change that, we want to see. And that's why I kind of founded TAF Cares, because sometimes with parents, you're dealing with hunger. Like if your child is hungry and your child needs therapy, you first feed them food.
Choose? Yes, that's true.
Pathway to assessment.
Yeah.
It's, maybe just in the big cities, it costs money.
Yeah.
A lot of money. That, it's a different level of awareness that's needed back home. And in the little way I can. My organization now, we have one speech and language therapist, one occupational therapist.
Wow, well
and we
done.
do block of 3 sessions for children weekly.
That's
but
good.
then there's still a lot of parents not even acknowledging that their child have needs. Like we're not even asking you for money. The therapist, our therapists do home visits. Like they actually come to your house to help you help your child. But
yeah, you need is a bigger.
It's a journey.
Yeah, it's a journey.
We'll get there.
We'll get there
Slowly but surely.
I do hope so, and I think, you being here, I'm sure some days you're like, thank God I'm even here. I'm not back home in Nigeria. Because
I really empathize with parents back home. It's a different type of struggle.
Have had the chance at all, and I think that's one thing. You'll probably be very, very grateful for.
And even here, we're complaining about, sometimes I'm just, when I compare, I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that, at least there's a service that, I don't have to be out of pocket for.
Yes, for.
Yeah.
Because every child matters, every human being matters.
Honestly, and every child can learn as well.
Or what country, every child matters. And once we know that, I think we'll become more empathetic. Our government back home, they will put things in place. It doesn't have to be a lot, just something. But like you said, when they don't even acknowledge that there's anything.
Well, they have a school, so they built a place where that's what they're ready and willing to give.
Yeah.
Like even things like giving the school an iPad, they were so over the moon. Like, okay, have Christmas party for the children. Let them feel loved.
Loved, yeah.
Little things like this go such a long way. And even places like church, some of our children, they have sensitivities to sounds. Or we can find ways to still include them. If they have to wear their headphones in church, let them. Yeah. Don't look at the parents and say, why is your child not listening to the service? Why is your child? Yeah. All these things make people stay in their house.
It's true.
Anyway,
I think we have a bigger work to do. And hopefully, anyone listening to this can be part of the change that we need back home.
We all have a role to play.
We all have a role to play as individuals as well. We're rounding up now.
Okay.
We've talked a little bit about some of the changes that you would like to see in the healthcare system and of course the social system. What changes would you like to see in policies in the UK? General policies.
So I would like there to be a more holistic approach to the services that children get, because sometimes we look at just the child, but the child doesn't exist solely. They exist around a lot of factors, so like family factors, environmental factors, cultural factors as well. So we can't see the child is not an island. They have all of these things that make them who they are. So if you look at just a child, we're not going to be able to cater to all the needs and meet those needs. So, as I said, I work in public health. Housing is such a issue. Like with some of our children, they need space to run around. but they're living in one bedroom with 5 people.
Yeah.
And then you say that their behavior is bad. They're doing self-injurious behavior. They're challenging behavior. They're biting themselves. They're biting people. Because, look at how their space is affecting them. Culture. Because, there are some cultures that are hard to reach because they don't acknowledge disabilities. And how do we gentrify that? You have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
There's no blanket rule that, okay, because we're all here living in the UK, we're all thinking in the westernized way,
yes,
so
absolutely.
just things like this, I would like there to be, more openness around factors, lots of different, so just looking at children holistically.
Yeah.
The child, how does their culture affect this?
Yes.
How does their housing affect this? Lots of different things.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, your final question. What would you tell your younger self if your younger self was sitting next to you right now? Take your time.
I thought of that before, Such a deep question. But I think I would just tell her to believe in herself, give herself grace, follow her dreams, love herself a little more. Gosh, trust her instincts.
Yeah.
Wow, I never really thought about that question, But just thinking about it now, I just feel like, my life journey has made me who I am now. Because, it's nothing like anything I dreamed of or bargained for. And it's taught me a lot of skills like, being empathetic, being resilient, owning into my own strength that sometimes you just don't even think you have or know where you're going to get from. So, those are the things. I think most of all is just to give grace.
That was a good way to close.
Oh, this was amazing.
A good way to close today's episode. Thank you so much, Tola, for joining us. Thank you for all the insights that you've given us as well. And we are so inspired by you. And if you ever think of, giving up, or you ever think you're having a bad day, just think of the people that you're inspiring out there. A lot of the moms, a lot of the people that follow you, even adults that follow you as well, and that you're reaching with your work. So just continue to keep your heads up, and you're doing amazing. Looking at your son, I don't think he would be where he is today without you and without the input and the sacrifice that you continuously make to make sure that he's the best that he can be in this world. So well done, and thank you so much for coming to join us in her space today. And I hope that this felt like a space for you.
It totally did. It literally felt like chatting with a sister. It's so lovely. I'm so honored to be here. I feel so thankful.
Thank you so much.
And it's lovely to see you, chat with you. Yes, amazing.
Really thank you.
Thanks.
So thank you everyone for joining today's podcast. You can watch and listen on our social media channels, including YouTube and all podcast streaming platforms, wherever you listen to your podcast. Remember to follow us, subscribe, share, and of course, let us know your thoughts on this episode. See you guys in my next episode. Remember, it's your space. Bye.
Bye.